got one that can see.
Where there's thunder, there's lightning. John Nada. We talk a lot in the community about red pill rage and some of the emotions and feelings that go along with that. But I've been playing with an idea in my head for a while, and that is the idea of the remnant. That there is a remnant within MGTOW. There is a remnant within this group. And I remember, honestly, it was 2013 when I got involved with MGTOW, when I really, I guess, internalized it and began to accept the reality of it. But I had actually heard about it prior to that in 2009, and it was kind of, I don't know, looking back on it now through the Roller Steve videos and all that, maybe it wasn't the best introduction to it, but certainly an introduction nonetheless. And so you can see that from 2009 to 2013, obviously when I got introduced to it, the ideas were there, but it wasn't really until a few years later that I'd had enough experience. I had gone through enough issues and situations and, been in the dating world and all that, that I finally was able to accept the reality of what was really going on. So we all, I think, to an extent, go through the anger phase where, and I don't have to really explain that very much because I think anybody that's come to this point now knows exactly what I'm talking about. But I wonder if there's not another stage that people go through that is a little bit more subtle than the anger phase. And we've heard it said that women at some point have to face the reality of the wall. They don't realize it's coming for the most part, but eventually they're faced with it and they have to deal with it. But I think we as MGTOW have something we have to deal with, and that is the true acceptance of things. And in my travels and goings about and my own experience, I have noticed a common theme. When you talk to guys in their 40s and older, they seem to really get female nature. They seem to really understand a lot of these concepts. But a lot of them have been on their third or fourth or fifth divorce. I mean, they will tell you so many truths about dating, relationships, marriage, all of that. And they speak with such wisdom. And yet you wonder, how has this guy who seems to understand everything, seems to really get it, has the experience and wisdom and speaks truth on the matter, yet he has made this mistake more than once, or even willingly is willing to make those same mistakes again and again. And it's because they may have the knowledge, but they've refused to accept the reality of it. They've refused to accept the truth. In their minds, and in the minds, I think, of many people in MGTOW, they still hold out hope for the unicorn. They still hold out hope for the narwhal. They still think that maybe, there's still that chance I may meet that girl, or I may meet this person, or, some form or another of hope in that regard. And so for the most part, they accept it, but there's still that little bit of them that refuses to completely internalize it. And so that's why I speak of a remnant. There are a lot of, MGTOW in a sense is very popular, at least in the sense that it is more popular now than it was when I first stumbled upon it. It has really exploded. There are many MGTOW YouTube channels, a lot of guys that I talk to in my daily life, as I'm sure in a lot of your all's daily lives, are familiar with a lot of the concepts. But I think that it's a small few that really accept it and believe it and live their life based off of what they've come to realize and know experientially and the like. The reason that I'm MGTOW is because I see the truth of it. I see the reality of the concepts, not simply in a academic manner, but in my own life, in my own experience. And I'm at the point now where, because many of us in this community, we're all going our own way. So with the exception of a few things that we all hold in common, what that looks like for one another may not be the same across the board. And in fact, many times will not be. But I mean, from time to time, I still talk to women. I am not completely against going out on dates. For me, I'm at a point in my chrysalis, if you will, of, being open to going on a date, but not really making that a centerpiece of my life or really putting a whole lot of effort into it. But having said that, every time I talk to, somebody, a would-be person I would date or whatever, I know that I have grown and matured in these ideas and thinking based off of how I would have used to, how I used to would have engaged in the situation and how I would now. And so it becomes rather anticlimactic for me, because I talk to these women and, we may talk about dating, but really it's kind of at a point now where I don't really have an interest in that, because in my mind, and from what I understand, one hand is behind the back with the knife, ready to pounce on any kind of insecurities or weaknesses or opportunity to take advantage of and, pull themselves up by your bootstraps. And so I don't entertain this fantasy idea that, oh, well, maybe this will be the one, or maybe I'll meet this girl that finally validates me or finally is there for me like no other. In my mind, I realize at the end of the day, the most it's ever going to be is, maybe spend some time together, maybe be physical and intimate and all that. But at the end of the day, there's going to be probably more negative in the situation than positive. And so I guess that's how I gauge the fact, the reality that that not only do I understand these concepts and believe them to be true, but that it's taken time to get to that point, because there would have been a time in the past where I might have been fooled and swayed. And so I think a lot of MGTOW are still in that point in time where they're vulnerable, and all it would take is, a certain woman to come along and show them attention and give them validation, an attractive woman or whatever, and they would totally cast aside all of the truths and beliefs and realities that they have learned through experience. So, again, as I say, I believe there's a remnant of MGTOW. And as MGTOW has grown, I think that some people are within MGTOW, but they've not really accepted it fully. And so we talk about the anger phase, but I believe there's also that lukewarm phase that many of us have to go through and maybe experience more things before it totally solidifies in our minds and we're able to truly walk away and be free with no regrets and no wondering. Anyway, I bring that point up. Would be interesting to hear any thoughts that anyone else has on this subject. And as always, you're free to do as you're told. I am John Nada, and this has been the Days of Thunder.